In this age and times comes great ideas, sweet memories,
new techniques,
untold stories about Africa and the world at large. Guess what? The new age brings on board a brand name in broadcasting technology.
Introducing Age Television. At Age Television, we serve you with professionalism
in news and event coverage,
live streaming, documentaries,
artist management,
video and photography,
social media management, and lots more.
For inquiries, call us on +27 061 773 9628
or 027 064 543 0136.
You can also send us WhatsApp messages on 078 229 4593.
YouTube HTV/Durban. Tweet us at HTV Durban.
Facebook at HTV Durban.
Instagram at HTV.Durban.
Email us at htvdurban@gmail.com.
Visit our website on www.htv.co.za. Age Television, celebrating the uncelebrated. Good evening, viewers. I'd like to welcome you to another edition of AKPAN'S Diary, where we have conversation on issues that affect politics, policies, economy, and all that. And last week, we focused on the political development in Nigeria, and we looked at the possibility of the rave, the social media rave of obedient movement, if it is able to be converted to actual vote. And today we'll be looking at another very prominent contender, a presidential candidate that is, and the person of Alhaji Atiku who was the vice president under the Obasanjo Atiku administration between 1999 and 2007. He's contesting under the party of PDP, political party, that was in power for 16 years before they were dislodged by APC. He made another effort to come back in 2019 and lost to the current president, Muhammadu Buhari. And he's gotten his last chance, perhaps I would like to say, given his age, to make an attempt at the presidency. But that particular ticket has come with a lot of issues, a lot of controversies, even within his party and all that. So to discuss that, we have a panel to look at if he can actually articulate his policies, his position, if he can go past the current situations that is troubling, bedeviling his party, and continue his articulation come 2023. And joining us to have this conversation are three gentlemen, and I'll quickly read their profile before I bring them onto the discussion. The first is Sunday Michael Ogwu. He's a multi-platform journalist with the Media Trust Group, and the Media Trust Group is the owners of Daily Trust newspaper and Trust Television, and they are based in Kaduna. It's one of the national newspapers that is based in Kaduna. In fact, I think it's the strongest newspaper in the northern part of Nigeria. And if you know the northern part of Nigeria very well, Kaduna is the political capital of northern Nigeria. He's the business editor of the newspaper and also an anchor of a breakfast show that is called Daybreak, a flagship program on Trust TV. Ogwu has a HND, BSc, MBA, and a master's degree in mass communication and marketing. He has built a career in business journalism, covering both local and international events. He's also chartered in advertising and public relation practices. So I'd like to say, Sunday Michael Ogwu, welcome to our program.
It's a pleasure to have me join you. Just a bit of correction. I'm actually based in Abuja.
You're based in Abuja?
Yes,
oh, okay. All right, okay. And the second panelist is John Shuaibu. He's a historian, an entrepreneur, a member of the PDP from inception. This is the man that we'll be speaking to more. And also member of PDP National Convention, member Anambra National Gubernatorial Campaign Council, I don't know if that was the last gubernatorial exercise in Anambra State. And then he's also a member presidential convention committee. John Shuaibu, you are welcome to AKPAN'S Diary on H Television.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be on set.
Okay. And then the last person is obviously not the least, Osadebe Ibegu. He is a member of Labour Party in the diaspora. He's based in South Africa and probably will be doing a lot to counter whatever John Shuaibu has to say about PDP. But gentlemen, you're all welcome to the program. We just want to have a conversation about the future of Nigeria as it regards politics. So I'd like to quickly start with Shuaibu for you to give us to set the tone for this conversation. What exactly is Atikulated? What is it about? What's the philosophy of articulation, Atikulated, and what really are you articulating?
Okay, I will try. I have a very thin voice. Yeah. Well, articulated. Well, like I said, is an acronym gotten from his name. You know, the way people play around with names. And then also to tell you that he has a plan, which of course have been written clearly out. This is someone that knows where he's going on the journey, and the journey, he knows where he's going, he's focused about it. So it just, acronym was said, okay, this man knows exactly where he's heading for. So he's an articulated man. He has an articulated plan for moving the nation forward.
Do you want to share some of these articulated plans with us?
Well, from the last election, we know he has his plan, which is a covenant with the people, and which has to deal with I think 5 key areas: security, education, the economy. I think the other 2, and that for me is it has been reviewed for now. The plan review based on the last time 2018 to be in tandem with the present situation that we have found ourselves, because the scenario in 2018, 2019 is not the same we have today. So that document is being reviewed, and then to address the present circumstance we have found ourselves in this nation right now. So is
the document going to be ready before the campaign begins later in the month?
Definitely.
Because if that document was available, we'll be speaking to that document right now.
It just is a review of the previous ones that they had before,
Okay, we'll get into we'll granulate the conversation more we'll drill it down into a granular method. Let me just quickly bring in Sunday Ogwu, who is a journalist and also based in Abuja. So, and so I'm sure there's a lot of interactions and contacts he has made with Atiku Abubakar and the politics within PDP. So Sunday, I'd like to find out from you, from your reading, give us a sense of what is happening within PDP. And do you think that articulated policy might survive the internal crisis that is holding down the party right now, particularly as it involves the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, insisting that the PDP chairman should step down? What do you think? Do you think that's going to affect the chances of Atiku Abubakar?
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that the PDP has built a character, of always coming out of the murky waters. They have, over the period of their existence, withstood very serious crises that at some point felt like it was going to break the party apart. But somehow, because of the experience of the politicians in that party and the sort of structure, they operate, and the benefit of the fact that they've had a lot of people come and go within that circle who other people can listen to. So they've always found a way to resolve their crisis. The only difference this time is that the Wike crisis is taking longer than people had expected. They had lost time that they should have used in consolidating, since that what appears to be a peaceful convention has now been overtaken since the announcement of a running mate, Okowa to be precise. The party, completely made a 360. A 360, aggrieved people who were not happy with how everything went down, started speaking up, particularly Governor Wike. And that is because, speaking from a journalist, we understood that the committee that the former vice president set up to choose a running mate for him
nominated Wike.
Well, they had a short list of people, but it does appear that Wike was on the top of that list. And at some point, the former vice president, rather decided to go with the one who was not exactly the anointed one, if I may put it that way. And that has not gone down with Wike or those in his camp. The governor of Oyo State, the governor of Benue State, who was the chairman of that committee, I think, if you like. So there have been crises. And Wike, give it to him, was there, whether in terms of cash or moral support. He held the party together at a very critical time in the annals of the PDP. So you can't write off his contribution to the party.
So you say that PDP has a Wike problem?
It's a plague they have to live with. Unfortunately, it doesn't feel like that crisis is going to be resolved anytime soon.
Now, that is why I was asking the question. I think by the timetable of INEC, the campaign is meant to start sometime in 29th of September, thereabout. Now,
yes.
Now they have a very short time. If they've not been able to resolve this issue from post-convention till date, and it's as if the thing is worsening, do you think they have enough time to still be able to go to the field and campaign as a united party? Is the umbrella now tearing apart?
To be fair to you, it has taken in the last 72 hours seem to be preparing for life after Wike, even though they would not admit that openly. There was a vote of confidence and to remain by 390 something members who were in that election. That is indirectly calling the blue. We want him in. And I wouldn't call it full of thought that if you change the party chairman, which is the principal thing that Wike is calling for, and for instance, you don't win the election, what happens to the man? So they felt that it is too short a time to begin to think of a national convention that will change the party chairman, which would in turn affect other elective positions in the party. Because if you change the chairman to another part of the country, the other part, to return to the other part, that is too much a distraction ahead of what appears like an all-important election. So the argument within that school of thought is, let us go through this election, secure this victory, what kind of realignments that we can do.
Okay. Mr. Osadebe, I know that you are in Labour Party, but somehow your principal, Peter Obi, walked into a Labour Party that had two factions, and for some whatever kind of crisis management skill, they were able to bring the party into peace. Yeah, they have some level of peace, at least to the public. There's peace. I don't know if there's anything internally, but on the contrary, PDP seems to have peace then, and then Atiku walked into PDP and became the flag bearer, and now there's crisis. Now, what do you think the crisis really is about? Is it a function of PDP members going against their own zoning formula? Because I think they had thought that the presidential candidate to come from the south and not from the north. And Atiku, being from the north, just walked in and then took the party. Now you have the party chairman who is a northerner. You have a presidential candidate who is a northerner. And then the BOT chairman who just resigned yesterday, 2 days ago, was a northerner also before he resigned for Wabara from the southeast to come in. So what do you think? What does that speak to about the crisis management skill of Atiku Abubakar, if you put it as against how Obi was able to manage the Labour Party crisis when he went to that platform?
See, what I see in what we call the Wike phenomenon. Wike phenomenon is a form of protest. Look, in PDP, they had an agreement. The agreement was that these things should shift, or rather nationally, when the president finishes from the north, it goes to the south. But in this case, PDP decided to, open the gateway, and then it's going to the north. But the southern governors have already indicated that this thing should shift to the south. Unfortunately, what they have done is that they move it to the north. So which means after 8 years of northern president, it will go to another northerner. And Wike and the southern governors, even though he's the face of a group of protests from southern governors. And it's like the Atiku group is a little bit arrogant. They are very, very arrogant. They don't want to come to the party and discuss with these people. They are sending emissaries. I believe Atiku, if he wants to lead Nigeria, should go to these people who are not happy within the party and see how he can, talk to them, meet them one-on-one. But sending emissaries means he's above these people and a little bit arrogant. I think that's how the unfortunate way they are managing the crisis. And these people are also saying, no, if you can't meet us halfway, then we move to another, carry out another,
So do you think, is that telling on the crisis management skill, a unifying skill of Atiku? If he's not able to manage his party, do you think he needs to manage the already polarized Nigerian polity?
No, that's what I'm saying. Because you are sending emissaries. Look, you're a leader, and a leader is a servant. You must humble yourself and go to these people. These people contributed immensely to this party, and these people are critical elements in the party. I'm talking of Wike and his governors. They are critical elements in the party. And if you can't humble yourself and go to them, how will you go to that position? So I think Atiku should, should brave it and go to them and talk to them. Otherwise, people are looking at it from the point that he's arrogant. He doesn't want to go to them, and that's the way he's going to lead Nigeria. And Nigerians are looking at it from that point too. And now we are looking at antecedents. What happened during the regime with with Obasanjo, when he was the vice Obasanjo. The same thing happened. It happened under Jonathan. It happened under Yaradua. He seems to be someone who is a little bit arrogant, and it doesn't sit well with Nigeria. Some people are scared. People are really scared.
Okay,
I
John
must be frank.
The conversation is cut out for you right now. Is Atiku crisis prone? Mr. Osadebe just gave us a bit of history about his many crises when he was working with, I think as a matter of fact, when during the NRC SDP days, I think there was a bit of crisis. Eventually, he was prevailed to step down for Abiola. And then when he was working with Obasanjo, the later part of the second part of their administration, he was more or less redundant because of the crisis he had with Obasanjo. And then he didn't work well with Yaradua. Even while he was with during Jonathan's time, he also had issues and left the party, led a team of people to leave the party to go start APC. Not so that they started, APC won the election. He had another crisis with Buhari again, and left APC, and he went back to PDP. Now again, he's having another kind of crisis. So what is it with Atiku and crisis? Is it his personality? Is it his policies? Is it his relationship management skill?
Well, thank you very much. It's not a matter of relationship management skill. You see, sometimes when you're destined for the high place, some stuff do happen along the way. If you look at the history behind Atiku from SDP days, he was a strong contender with Abiola. In that convention in Jos, he came third. But his votes, at the end of the day, swung victory for Abiola. And that, from the story gathered, and which was written in books and read from books, what happened was Kingibe played the first one at the convention because that was the arrangement that was supposed to be that, okay, Atiku should be the vice president. But it happened openly. Kingibe played the first one, and then events overrode each other now, and Kingibe became the vice presidential candidate. Now, when Abiola came, when it was time for PDP in 1999, when democracy turned back to the nation, in 1999, he won his election, and Obasanjo brought him in as his vice president. Now, at the end of the day, you see, one thing we must understand about PDP is this. PDP have a structure, a quarter constitution that says, in fact, it's an unwritten, if I may put it in that way, idea that, look, North and South, so everybody could be competing. Now, when that happened, if you notice, when Obasanjo came in, so to assuage the debts of the Southwest, they assuage their pain from the death of Abiola, Obasanjo was brought in from the prison. And Atiku and Co., the PDM, the Yaradua factor, played a very critical part in bringing him on. And campaigns was done, and Atiku, Abiola won, Obasanjo won. Now, fast forward, they had a very good relationship for first 4 years. While Obasanjo was going out, he was sitting down here as the head of economy, and trust, they built up a reality. But when it came to 2003, probably because some of the governors then, and it's on record, Ojikalu spoke to it, that about 17 governors told him, look, you go and indicate your interest to run for presidency. Atiku knelt down. It's just I can't send you the video, maybe I can send you privately. That look, this man trusts me. I can't betray him. I need to work with him. Kwande of Just in Plateau also said same. I told him, look, go and declare your candidacy. He said, no, I cannot, because I need to be faithful to my boss. Now, when it got towards the tail end, I think my brother, the journalist, he should be able to recall that there was this idea of a third term thing with Obasanjo. Atiku was like, no, this is not democracy, because he's a Democrat to the core. This is not democracy. We cannot do this. Eventually, he went against his boss, and the boss was not happy. And a military man, Obasanjo, had an antecedent. That was how they fell out. Now, when it got to a point that, okay, he wanted to contest towards the tail end of the administration, Obasanjo, because of all the issues, they wanted to impeach him, went to court, and Obasanjo couldn't give him a chance in the party to run. So what happened? The best thing for him to do, because of his thinking and his belief and the idea and the conviction that he needs to move this nation forward by also putting his own idea of how to run government, he decided, okay, let's pull out, since I don't have a platform to run on PDP. So that was the first genesis. It's not as if he just decided, oh, let me just leave. We also, if we look at history, then when it got to the time of JEG, I can really address that. When Yaradua died, there was this doctrine of necessity. There was a real commotion. The North said, look, let us continue our tenure in fulfillment of the arrangement that they have South and North. Now people say, no, Jonathan has, what's it called? He has a ticket with Yaradua, finish his tenure. They say, okay, finish his tenure, so the North, he can go back to North. So we gig the arrangement. But what happened? They were prevailed on to carry on for 2011 to 2014. Jonathan finished it, everybody rallied around, and we won the election. 2015 came again. And if you put in the figure, Obasanjo from the South, 8 years, Jonathan completed Yaradua's tenure, and then he went for another one, that's 12 years, or let's say 12 years, plus the 1 year, that's 13 years. Now, if you go for another 4, that will make it like now probably 16 or 17 years. If we have to discountenance the 1.5 year completion of Yaradua ticket, it should be 12 years, 16 years. Now, where's the equity there? They said, no, let's also not do it like that. You don't have power corrupt.
So, talking about equity, Mr. John, yes. Isn't this the same thing that Wike is asking also? Okay, if when he was, yes, during the Jonathan time, his reason for going against Jonathan and also leading a walkout, okay, was because of equity, that the power should have reverted to the North. Is it not the same thing that Wike is saying, that after Buhari, power ought to have come to the South?
Now, that is playing the devil's advocate. That is purely playing the devil's advocate. Because APC.
So Atiku played the devil's advocate or Wike?
Wike. He's playing the devil's advocate.
But he's also talking about equity. The same argument Atiku had against Jonathan is the same argument he has against Atiku.
No, let me say, don't play the card. We are playing the card of APC here. We are talking about PDP. I'm not concerned about APC. All right. Now, the point here we're talking about when it concerns PDP, on our own, if we have a southerner going again, that means we have that wins the ticket. We have, the North being outplayed. And to tell you, let me tell you why I said the devil's advocate. Why was it thrown open? Why is Wike from the South going for presidency, for instance, when Jonathan had done 4 or 5 years? For me, just like Atiku said, he said, if is microzone, because Southeast hasn't gotten, North Central hasn't gotten, Northeast hasn't gotten.
But your constitution does not recognize geopolitical zone. It recognizes North and South, and that power should rotate between North and South and not geopolitical zone. And if the PDP governors and all that agreed that they should revert to the South, what is the issue with Atiku not accepting the fact that, okay, since the majority of the structures have said it should go to the South, what is wrong with that?
No, okay, let me say it. When we say, politics is all about association of people of interest, right?
Above equity.
Look, when you talk about politics, equity only plays out when it pays you.
Okay. So I wanted to clarify the issue of equity because you talked about eloquently about equity during the Jonathan Atiku issue. So you see that equity itself is subsumed under politics.
No, it is not. I made an analogy, and yes, that the South have had it under PDP. All right, because what you're doing now is to pitch PDP against APC. We're not running the card on the card of APC. APC, because they are also doing what is right by zoning it to the South, coming from the North, they couldn't have gone back to the North. It won't even work because PDP didn't do it during our own time, 1993, 1999 to 2007, went to Yaradua in the North. Now, when it was thrown open, negotiation in politics, there is this thing about negotiation. You negotiate positions. Nobody gives you on a platter of gold, right? Now, when they threw it open, what happened? Politics was played, and Atiku won at the end of the day. All right? It is not Atiku that played that game because it's an individual. Wike is an individual. All right? So if Atiku, at the end of the day, at the convention, won the election based on negotiation with somebody of a like mind or who felt, okay,
or based on influences.
Also played. Whatever influence, whatever it is, politics is politics. That's politics for you. All right? So the politics was played and someone stepped down for another person and then Atiku won. Now, for instance, I will ask, when we're talking about the South, why also didn't one person say, okay, let's quickly renegotiate, let there be an influence, let somebody from the South also be our choice candidate?
Okay, being a member of the convention committee, I think it's a good place to ask you what your views are with money politics and using money to influence delegates. What's your views? Do you think it's still politics?
You know why I'm laughing? I'm laughing.
No.
You see, people have this delusion about money being shared.
No, we're asking you to confirm or to deny it. We don't. That's why we want clarification from you.
Totally wrong. Totally wrong. I can tell you on my honor, even we that are member of the committees that ran, me that I'm sitting down, I did not 1 naira was paid to facilitate my even attending the program and working for days. That okay, go and drink water.
Okay, maybe Mr. Sunday Ogwu he's a journalist. I'm sure if he did not observe it, I'm sure some of his colleagues were at the convention, so he might clarify that also as an independent person. But anyway, let me quickly just ask, I'll come back to you, Mr. John Shuaibu. Let me let you take a breather. Let me get to Sunday. John did mention articles, policies, and and one of the things he talked about was economy. Nigeria is quite in a dire strait now when it comes to economy, in any way you want to look at it. And Atiku, by being the vice president under Obasanjo, was constitutionally the head of the economic team, so to speak, and was also the chairman of the National Council for Privatization, which supervised the activities of Bureau for Public Enterprise that was headed by current Governor El-Rufai. And that exercise, as we speak today, one of the things that the opponents of Atiku want to use against him, and it has been, it's been there for like 4, 5, 6, 7 years, about sales of some certain paracetals, like the Alscon in Akwa Ibom, Ajakuta Steel Complex, and other companies that were sold. There are some people think, or speculate rather, that some of these things were sold to friends and cronies and all that. What is your take on that? That's one. Then two, how would you rate his performance as vice president, who was supervising the economy of Nigeria, particularly in their first 4 years?
Okay, thank you very much, Godfrey. I would like to say that it's very important that when we answer these questions, we answer them under the proper context, so that it doesn't become a flattered question response, because circumstances led us to taking certain decisions in the past that may be viewed differently today for people who do not understand those circumstances. To start with, what I say about these economic policies, I have played in that space, particularly as you would have known from my profile that I was a finance
business editor.
Yeah. Whilst also keeping my eye on the economic activities. So, in speaking about the entire process of privatization, I don't think it would be proper to cherry pick just those ones that did not work and then speak about them in very terrible light, as though to suggest that everything that was privatized actually did not work. Today, I am able to do this call with you because that privatization opened up the telecom space. And
the deregulation also, actually, because NITEL didn't work out well.
Well, NITEL did work, but it was competition that forced NITEL into docility. If that space was not opened up under whatever economic policies, it would have been difficult to achieve those success. And it has opened up last week, for several other people to play. There are several government assets that were lying dormant that were not bringing in anything, but we were spending so much money, trying to keep alive. And I will give you a typical example. They did the privatizations of the refineries. The subsequent government came in because of the hues and cries of people in labor. That action was reversed.
Yeah, the Yar'Adua administration reversed the two.
That's right.
Refineries that were sold.
We have done countless of turnaround maintenance, and those places have refused to turn around. The implication is that you may have employed some people sometimes in 1999 or 2001 who have risen to the position of director in places that have not produced a liter of fuel. So you can then begin to put those on the equation. The power sector privatization clearly may not have achieved what we wanted, but we understand that whatever we did there was not wholesome. There were several things that needed to happen. You privatize on the one hand something to private sector players. You refuse them to come in and take proper assessment of the assets they wanted to buy. They came in and saw a near dead asset that will require even far more investment than the initial ones they paid to. And then in between all of this, you have a TCN that is government-owned, government-run with all the bureaucracy. A couple of weeks ago, the guys in the TCN woke up from settlements over payments that were not made, and they shut down the entire grid, not because we were not generating, not because the GENCOs could not distribute, but the distributing arm, the transmission arm, decided to shut down its facility, and it made a nonsense of every other player in that sector. So you can begin to see what these issues are. So as somebody who plays in the business space, who deals with facts, regardless of my political leaning, the evidence are there that if we had managed those privatizations well, in line with what we see in other parts of the world, it does appear like the place to go. What we then need to do is to put structures in place to make sure that what we are doing is not transferring government assets to private cronies. That's answering one of your questions. The other one is, whatever perspective you hold about an Atiku, his person, his attributes has sort of changed the way politics is played in Nigeria. Incidentally, we play politics where parties do not have any ideology. So even if you jump from a PDP to APC or wherever you go, it's more about the individual than anything you meet. At any rate, I don't even see anybody on the space today who has maintained a single party in the last 20 years. So it's not something that he alone.
Except Bola Tinubu.
Well, that
so
is
to
not.
speak.
He formed a merger in a way, so it wasn't the ACN or that we know, or the AC or AD,
or the AD.
as we know. Yes, that is still, it has metamorphosized, and that metamorphosis has come along with several marriages and all of that. So it has taken different forms and all of that. And what is the basis for that metamorphosis? It wasn't any metamorphosis on the line of ideology. It was just a marriage of convenience to win offices. However, that we may see that it was just a question of, you could bring this number, I could bring this other number. If we come together, we can put up an stage. But what you cannot take away from an Atiku is somebody who has built bridges across the divide over the years. You can wish that away at your own peril. He had, thriving business in the Delta. We know the better part of his career he operated between Ogun and Lagos State. And he's a seasoned businessman. You can't take that away from him, as well as having played in politics. You talked about serving in that economic management team. It wasn't the credit that is even paid to him, in fairness. It's not really about him managing that process, but identifying talents, that have turned up to be very astute managers. He's credited.
Mr. Ogwu, let me quickly ask here. I hear you on some of the things that you have clarified. And of course, you went back to the career of Atiku. As a customs officer, I've read that he started business. I'm not too sure what the civil service rules are if you are in the customs, if you're allowed to do business. But I do know that the Nigerian civil service rule allow you to do farming as another business if you are in. But he was in the public service as a customs officer, yet he said he set up a buying and selling, trading of vehicle business and all that. And so I'm not too sure if that was constitutionally correct. That's one. Then the second one, still talking about business. I think until recently, his company was running the port. That is one of his logistics firm also. I can't remember the name of the company until I think recently he divested from that business. At what point did he make that investment? Was it when he was the vice president? Because it was owned by the federal government until it was privatized. So is it that he benefited from the exercise itself?
Okay. I think what I need to do in this regard is to actually provide more privatizations. To start with the first one, yes, there are things you are allowed to do depending on what area you are playing, whether you are a civil servant or you are in public service. Remember,
he was in public service.
You remember the two of them are slightly different. And I'm not sure this rule has remained static over the years. I think some kind of modifications have happened. So in truism, I am not able to tell you what the conditions were as at the time, because remember, these are businesses he talked about that he went into in the 70s, not in the 80s. In fact, they were in the late 70s, when he was posted to one of the border points in Ogun State, where he bought the first two pickups, Idiroko to be precise, where he bought pickups and have people transport people through and through. What the situations were at that time is something we probably will have to then investigate to see whether there were every infringement. However, coming to the Onne port, the Onne port had always been owned by government. It's a dedicated seaport. It's not the type that is open. It's a free trade zone, more or less. What he operated was Intel's, where he had business interests. Intel's runs a more like a logistic and services company.
Steve Dorwin, yeah.
Because as we speak today, and you can look up my name versus Intel's, you will see stories that we did over 6-8 months ago, raising alarm, no, over 4 months ago, yeah, where we raised alarm that since that crisis started with Intel, this government has lost a whopping 60-something, about 68 to 70 billion. Because what Intel was doing, no government company had the capacity to do. So whether it was politics that forced them into canceling that contract without looking at the merits of it, there were different things. The documentary review.
So in other words, you're saying that MPA does not have the capacity of
They don't, and they
Intel.
have said that openly. They don't.
That's an indictment on MPA.
Yes, they don't. Well, they are just regulators. They are services that you outsource. And even in outsourcing, you want to be sure of the capacity of the people who carry out this contract.
That's
yeah.
correct.
So it's a different thing where there were failures on the part of Intels, just as there were failures on the part of government. The cues and cries were basically that Intels may have been recovering more money than what the government supposedly get from it as a service charge or whatever. But that is the business of the government to set up the machineries to ensure that appropriate collections are returned. I mean, nobody would just tie a rope on his neck and hand himself over to you on a platter. So that is on the one part. And since that thing stalled, they have not been able to find replacement and capacity. So only heaven knows what they are even recovering on those lines. But by the way, I think it is important to also clear that over a year or two ago, in the heat of that crisis, Atiku Abubakar divested from that company. So I think it will be misleading the public to still suggest that he's the owner of Intel.
We said that he had divested.
Yes. So I'm just re-emphasizing that for emphasis that he sold down his interest from that company. I'm not sure what played out back end, because it does appear that the company was being targeted by government on account of the fact that he owned shares.
The Buhari government.
Well, absolutely. So these are some of the intricacies that had followed his desire. And by the way, just to reply to one of the things that was said by Osadebe, I don't think that regardless of what is out there in the press, I don't think we should be criminalizing people's ambition. I mean, it's a free world. People should be able to offer themselves, and we should be able to do this kind of scrutiny that is happening. So whether they had problem in the past or not is a different thing. Some of the problems they had were actually for the interest of Nigeria and not just for their personal reasons. Yeah.
Okay, let me quickly come to Osadebe. It is also on record that the government, they were in court. The government of Obasanjo must have done a lot of investigation, tried to see if they can pin anything on him. And every time he had issues, he went to court with the government and he won all his cases. So I think that has to also be put out there, that there was no indictment whatsoever against Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. I think we need to clarify that. But getting back to Osadebe, there is, Ogwu just spoke about his business interests, and then Shuaibu even talked about his contract, his paper, his document, his policies that he's going to run if he becomes the president of Nigeria. And of course, if you look at his antecedents as vice president and the Obasanjo administration, they pursued vigorously a policy of commercialization and privatization, which was right as at that time, because Nigeria needed to open up the space for businesses and all that. Some of the benefits are the telecoms that he just spoke about. However, you are in Labour Party, and if you look at Labour Party all over the world, they are usually to the left, ideologically speaking, looking at workers' welfare and social investment, ownership of factors of production and capital and all that. Now, from Peter Obi's presentation so far, it does appear as if Peter Obi is in agreement with Atiku on the way forward, which is taking a total detour from what this government at least started with. The government started by looking as if they were socialists, also a bit confusing until right now I think they're trying to go capitalism. But Atiku has made it very clear from the beginning that he was going to sell off the refineries and all that. Is this in tandem with Obi's own kind of policies also?
Let me first of all start with what Sunday, my brother, Sunday, are you hearing me?
Yeah, you're listening.
What my brother
Okay, sorry, Mr. Osadebe, can you take that again?
Now, what I'm saying is that you are talking about criminalizing.
It froze at some point. I didn't hear your opening remark.
Okay, he's making the point again.
You said something about criminalizing that, someone. Now, I wasn't talking about that area because we will talk about that one in another day. But I was talking about his antecedents with the past leaders in terms of loyalty, whether to Obasanjo, whether to Yar'Adua and all those things, and what is happening with the current governors. That's what I meant, But now going to the actual point of the economic, this has given us a 5-point program which he wants to run, which includes uniting Nigeria, but he has not given us how he intends to unite Nigeria, which we don't know how he intends to do that. From the Labour Party, Obi has been going out, Obi has been identifying the problem, because one thing is, first of all, to solve a problem, you have to identify it, bring it out to the fore, and then develop plans to do it. Atiku is telling us he has 5-point program which he wants to deal with, which is uniting Nigeria. He has not told us how. We know what is happening in the north. We don't have.
Has Obi actually told us how he's going to run his own program also?
No, what I'm saying, Obi has identified some of the problems and is dealing with those problems, how to deal with those problems, has been, articulating it, and, which is in the public, space. He's telling you, look, for instance, we want to move from, okay, let me look at the economic side of it. Let me start from the economic. He's saying that we want to move away from, consumption to production.
Which is what Atiku is also saying.
How is he saying that? How?
For instance, he wants to. Let me give you the typical example.
I want to see.
Atiku believes that subsidy should not be paid because actually the elites are the beneficiaries of the subsidy that is being paid. So he thinks that we need to sell off the refineries, open up the space, just the same kind of policy that the Jonathan led by Okonjo-Iweala tried to do in 2012. And then people mobilize against, as we seem to be going back to what we were supposed to have done in 2012. So Atiku and Obi seems to have agreed on the way forward in terms of payment of subsidies and also privatization and opening up of the space in the oil and gas sector. That is essentially moving from consumption to production, and then again diversifying the economy. So I am looking at what is the difference between Atiku's policies and Obi's policies in terms of as far as the economy is concerned.
We have. When you say he said he was going to sell off the refineries, we saw the last one he did. My brother Ogwu was also saying that some of them were successful. He talked about the regulation, which happens, where the telecoms were coming in, which was not. He was not talking about where government invested millions of dollars or rand or naira, and which these people sold off to their cronies and which collapsed, like the smelting one in Akwa Ibom. Yes, those are something that would have been some of the engine for Nigerian development, but these things collapsed under his privatization. I'm not saying that, like he said, that some of them, totally collapsed, but most of our, those privatized institutions collapsed. And now is the same person that you're going to trust, to do the same thing again.
Okay, let's talk about, is it not possible that we can't, first, the whole issue of privatization was directly managed by El Rufai, who was the DG of the Bureau for Public Enterprise. Atiku was the chairman of the National Council for Privatization. Now, Atiku was a member of the cabinet. So if El Rufai took a policy document or proposal to Atiku, did Atiku approve it on his own, or he took that same document to cabinet at that council level that was chaired by Obasanjo with all the ministers as members? They collectively approved some of the sales and privatization of those companies. Don't you think that we are becoming unfair to Atiku to just target him as far solely being responsible for some of the companies that didn't do well? For instance, like the one in Ikotabasi and also at Jakarta.
No, I think you're getting it wrong. He was a part of the team. whether that team failed, if that team failed, it's also responsible.
So
remember, he was
failed.
the chairman of that team. That's what it means. If that team that carried out that responsibility failed, they also failed in that area. So let us not say because Obasanjo did a lot of good things, therefore there's no area he did bad things.
So can we also see that El-Rufai also failed?
Yes, that's what's happening. They failed woefully. They failed woefully, and that's why Nigeria is where it is. You know, now we have
differently.
Now Obi is, first of all, he's trying to change the way, you know, the way Nigeria spends money, you know, how the wasteful expenditures in Nigeria. He wants to manage our economy and then be able to hold people to account. In Nigeria, nobody is being held account. Whether it's in PDP, whether it's in APC, they're not holding any person to account. So Obi wants to change that system to make sure that where you invest more, when you borrow money, you invest it, or when you raise revenue, you invest in something that will generate income to the society and which will be equitably, you know, shared within the society, that will be beneficial to the society. That is what Obi is pushing forward. And it's like he's carrying the people along. It's carrying the majority of the people along.
Let me ask you just one more question before I move to Shuaibu. The IPOB has just declared a sit-at-home. They've made a declaration of sit-at-home on Tuesday in the southeastern states. Do you think that declaration will send a wrong signal to the Obi presidency and or mixed messaging that other regions will begin to wonder, you know, but do you think it's in order? Do you think it's going to harm the chances of Obi from a perception point of view by other people? And the opposition will take advantage of it, particularly PDP?
Let me say, first of all, I'm not even aware of that Tuesday. I know of the Monday one, but let me tell you, I hope like what is happening in other parts of the country, like what Boko Haram is doing there. Those are challenges which the country is going through. So we should not sectionalize it, whether it's going to affect Obi. Otherwise, you say what is happening in the north, like what is the Boko Haram is doing, or the kidnappers is also going to affect Atiku.
The political history of the
truth is that
in the context of Nigeria.
No, that's what I'm saying. You should not sectionalize it. The truth that we have a unit called Nigeria, whether it's affecting the north or whether it's affecting the south or southeast. The issue is that Obi is reaching out. A lot of people, whether in the north or in the south, there have been some people who have been, you know, affected because of the bad governance we have. Now, Obi wants to restructure that, and he wants to talk to the people. He wants to dialogue with the people. The problem is that we have leadership that has refused to dialogue with the people. That is the problem we have. Now, we want to dialogue with the people so that we carry the people along. We have a kind of leadership, political class that are just up there. They don't want to, you know, deal with the people. So now, Obi is coming with a new structure. The structure he carried around the people, and then make sure that their revenue is being utilized for its purpose, not enriching few people.
Okay, that's fine. John Shuaibu.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. It's better now. Your audio seems better now. Obi and Atiku, is there a difference in terms of economic policy? And Obi and Atiku worked together during the 2019 election, so there should be some kind of agreement, ideologically speaking, in terms of the way forward. Obi, let me ask the question. Obi is a phenomenon, so to speak, at least on social media, and you can see evidences here and there where people are doing, you know, 1 million man march, that million man march, and across the country, Taraba. I'm talking of places outside the southeast, talking of southwest, I'm talking of north, central, northeast, and all that. You know, Atiku seems to be very quiet on the social media. It's at least, especially with the youth. Obi seems to have taken over the social media and also the youth. What is your candidate doing to mobilize the youth to be able to counter the rising profile of Peter Obi?
Well, you know, I need to clear one or two things first. You see, when it comes to when, the Obi, sorry, what's his name? Remind me his name. Osadibe, yeah. When he was, sorry, my brother, you know, I would like to say this from the beginning that Obi is one of our students, PDP students. and an Atiku student.
But he's not Abga student?
Abga, no. Abga is a local champion. PDP trained him because under PDP, we gave him chairman of SEC, Security Exchange Commission. Under PDP, he worked with Jonathan. And then Atiku brought him again to run with him on a ticket. So he trained him over time. Even Obi himself said, he's my boss, he's my elder brother. So a boss is always a boss. All right? Because in Africa, we say, what an elder sees sitting down and a young boy standing on the tree can never see it. All right? So having said that, the pedigree of Atiku, you see, in 1999, when PDP came on board, there was a diet of, economic good platform for the people to move the nation upward because of what the military have done. So what did they do? There was a fire brigade. That was why I love what Abu said. Exigencies of that time and this period is quite different because government was the one maintaining a lot of infrastructure back then. So what happened? They needed to cut down costs fast. You know what happened in civil service? What did they do? They allocate funds which they will never use to renovate their houses. For instance, the legislative quarters was occupied by civil servants. When Obasanjo came, legislators came in, they spent billions of naira to renovate to enable legislators coming. But eventually they saw, look, it's not going to be right. They sold off.
The monetization policy.
The monetization process. Now BPE came into place. From BPE was to open up the economy, open up the private sector, so we can have, instead of having military set up, they have to open there has to be a political democracy, as it were, to open up the economy. Because in reforms, when you're having reform, it is holistic, it's not just one. For Osadibe picking on the sales of the smelting company, it's just a one-off thing. Anything can happen. And of course, when people say, I bet you agree, sometimes you can buy a car multi-million and there's a what they call a flood. Water gets into your engine. You sell the car off at $1,000. Whether you bought it last year. So that company already on its own, is I believe the civil service or the government interference in that sector have actually killed the business. So what do? They need to get someone that can regig it. And they have to do analysis, do an audit of such companies. So I don't think if you can invest millions of dollars to get that company up going, selling it probably at the rate based on due diligence is not whether an Atiku problem, is a problem of that infrastructure that has not been managed well, that led to being sold. And don't forget, government does not have business running a business. And Atiku on his own now said, look, you know what? What do we do to get this going? Out of his plan, he said it in one of his interviews at Chatham House. He said, you don't have a business being in government if you're not a businessman. And with Atiku antecedent, you've seen that he's an astute businessman. He has
just to ask, there are some certain European countries and probably countries in Africa like South Africa that government run business and they run it efficiently and effectively. Is it about the government running the business or the corruption in the system?
Now, you see, thank you very much. Every society have their own culture. We all agree at a point that this country, a lot of corruption went with a long time of military rule. All right? That was what informed the establishment of EFCC, the ICPC, and all that. EFCC came on board in 2000. I think 2000 or 2003 or so. That's when ICPC came up 2000, EFCC 2003. Right? Now, what were they to do? They were to check corruption, and it was noted under that government, a former IG of police was convicted, arrested for that purpose. A minister, a friend to President Obasanjo, was removed, was prosecuted. High profile. That was the first time we have high profile prosecution of economic corrupt offenders. Now, if we look at that, that would tell you the kind of personality Atiku is. All right. For you to run a successful private business, you don't want to lose money. And you put the checks in place. That was what informed EFCC, ICPC, and all that. So today, if what is going on in the governance of this nation, I think Atiku have a grip of it by reason of experience. You know, you can't buy experience from the market. The former vice president is not coming to learn the job.
But you heard Festus Keyamo said that he doesn't have executive experience, that the book has never stopped on his desk, and Peter Obi and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually have been executive presidents and not him. No, even though Obasanjo tried to say, oh yeah, there were times that he gave him chairmanship of the FEC to manage and all that. The question remained that, was there a transmission of letter for him to actually take actual running of the government and also take decisions while he was the vice president?
We cannot take this away. Obasanjo and Atiku had a very good working relationship. I doubt it, and I believe at that time, we should give it to him, that there's no way he could have taken a decision without the the president appending his signature to it. Saying that, look, you have done this, right? Then he appends. They go to a federal executive council. Everybody will also agree with them. It's not something that he will take a decision by himself. All right. Now, if we want to interrogate the others who had executive powers, then we can hold them responsible for certain things. All right, which they have executive power, the last say, you know, to approve or to disapprove. So we can hold them to it. But Atiku, from his own perspective and what governance is all about, he's not just looking at the situation. In fact, from what people are saying, is about a 4-year he has. But I believe one thing, that his ideology or idea of how to run the economy and the state is right there. He's talked about devolving power from the federal, taking the electricity from the exclusive list. That is something that states should get involved in. Because, like, for instance, in America, I remember in one of my trips, you have even estates having their own power source, right?
Hello, Shuaibu? Oh, I think we lost him there. Until he comes back again, let me just quickly.
If the state get involved. Until he comes back again, let me just quickly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, you're back.
In Bayelsa, at the point I think in Bonny, the brass area, they have under elements here. They had a 24-hour power source because it was locally generated, and they were enjoying it today.
Yeah, but Mr. Shuaibu, now, Mr. Shuaibu, the issue of power management in Nigeria, it's also a constitutional issue. To some extent, yes, at some point, only the executive, what you have the exclusive list, were able to generate, transmit, and also distribute until it was unbundled. And then eventually the generation and the distribution sold. But the TCN, and it is not strange because many countries will not allow transmission in the hands of private sector. So many countries hold on to transmission. But the transmission company is in the hands of the federal government. So which means that if the state like Akwa Ibom and the rest, if they generate, they will still need to contribute to the national grid for TSN to transmit. So Atiku will require the National Assembly to change the constitution. So it is not something that he can take from a boardroom point of view as a decision of fiat and all that. How do you think he can navigate through selling the idea that the whole concept of power, the 3 stages of power, should be unbundled and also opened up for private investment and management?
Negotiation. Because for him, he needs to lobby the National Assembly. That is why I would advocate that people should vote in the PDP legislators at the Senate as majority and also at the Green Chamber. It's all about lobbying, and Atiku has it in him to be diplomatic and also to be able to negotiate his way out. For government properties to be sold at that time, it took negotiation, and people saw the good part of it. And I believe if they see the good part of it with this plan, they'll be able to say, okay, we can key into this your program. Because the truth is this, the federal government cannot manage transmission all alone. All right? So if they can't manage it, there should be an involvement of the state government in transmission for me. All right? So if we look at that perspective, I guess we will be able to a little solve some of our power challenges.
Okay, quickly, if you can answer this in maybe 3-4 minutes so that I can quickly ask Sunday Ogwu. Touch on the security. What kind of security policy do you think Atiku will run to be able to bring in terrorism, insurgency, and all that? Particularly the Fulani headsmen crisis that has also been recorded to be one of the, I think, number 2, number 3 also in the terrorism index. Atiku is Fulani. How is he going to deal with the issue? Buhari was not able to deal with it because of some level of sentiment. Do you think Atiku will have the confidence, the courage to be able to deal with it, particularly since he himself does not believe in stopping headsmen from moving around the country?
No, number one, let me clear this. He doesn't believe in headsmen moving around the country. That was why he said the states, the federal government has no basis for establishing office.
He still does not agree with some of the anti-grazing laws in some states.
No, he agreed. It was read out of context. You know, it's very easy for people to read people out of context. All right. What are the ranches doing? Why should federal government control the states around their land use? All right. The states can determine what they do. So ranching is just a best practice you can have. All right. So for me, if you look at the situation that is on ground now, a Buhari man, we know what happened, what this government is all about. Okay. And if we say about Fulani, Atiku is not your typical Fulani man you call. He's somebody that that build bridges across the board. All right. And he's somebody that is liberal. In fact, they used to say Atiku is not a real Fulani man. Remember? All right. Why? Because he's liberal. He's liberal in his thinking, he's liberal in his acting. In fact, some of his companies have, you know, a divergent, what's it called, tribes in his government.
He's looking for competence.
Of competence. And for him to bring people like Okojo-Iweala, headhunt some of them, and Ekwesili, headhunt some of Soludus, it tells you that he doesn't broach, he actually wants a Nigeria. He doesn't care where you come from as long as you're competent. Because this governance is not about one person saying I. It's about we. Government is not about I, it's about we. So it's bringing a team up to ensure that governance is run on the basis of competence and the basis of progress and the basis of development. All right. Okay. So,
all right. Thank you. In that part of the we feeling as propounded by August Ekomte in sociology, I'd like to quickly go to Sunday Ogwu to let's look at the three of them now. Let's look at the three major contenders, that is Peter Obi, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Atiku Abubakar. And I like you, since you are a business journalist and also have some eyes on economy and all that. I'd like you to look at what do you think? Do a comparative analysis of the manifestos. Are not out yet. We are not sure what their document will look like, but I'm sure as a journalist, you have some snippets. And if you look at the antecedents of these people, the three people, what kind of economic policies and also business model do you think that they will pursue if any of them become the president of Nigeria? What is your vote in terms of business and economy as a business journalist, given Atiku Abubakar, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and Peter Obi? Have this in mind also, that the same, I think Atiku must have been involved also, I'm not too sure, but Bola Ahmed Tinubu was also part of the people that mobilized against the deregulation of, or removal of subsidy in 2012 and deregulating the oil and gas sector in 2012. And do you think Do you think that it was a wise thing for them to have done then? And do you think that if they get in, how would you assess their management of subsidy and also the economy in general and diversification of the economy?
I think that is that looks like a multiple combo of questions. Interesting conversations, and I want to say I hear you talking about Mr. John and all of that. I was shaking my head when he gave that his opening proverb that what an elder sees sitting on top of a tree, a young man will not see it. I just needed to remind him that technology has broken that barrier. Sometimes even the child inside the cave may see much more or even further than the old man sees these days. So times have changed, and it is this change and this discontentment with the way things have happened over several decades that is making Peter Obi a phenomenon, essentially. Having said that, let me also begin premise my intervention at this level to say that whichever of the three candidates that emerge, indications are that they will do far better than this current administration when it comes to appreciate. It is proving extremely difficult. When I say extremely difficult, from the point of view of a journalist, for observing what is happening in the polity, to see how the APC candidate is struggling to put his campaign messages across without necessarily, downplaying what this government has done. The messaging has been extremely difficult. You have to completely divorce yourself from what has been a complete missteps, a complete be able to then talk about a change or a divergence or from what they have done. So they're straight up, the three of them are going to necessarily economic programs that would return us on the path of growth. Remember, all whether it is unemployment, whether it is inflation, foreign direct investments are dropping crazily. Call it debt service ratio has jumped 300% above our capital income. Today we are hearing that we will be growing anywhere in the region of 11 trillion next year. And that will be taking our borrowing cap. We will be hitting an all-time high of our 50. The debt forgiveness nearly 15 years ago. So everybody appreciates that something has to be done. These three candidates come with whose background speaks for him. His participation in business is there for everyone to see. Peter Obi has built a career for himself as an astute trader. And I mean, for him to have been chairman of 3 commercial banks in Nigeria and having spent well over 10 years doing business to the level of tens of millions of pounds in the UK showed clearly his pedigree. Well, whatever is being said there, he had managed Lagos of bringing in more revenue and some of the capital projects they have been clearly head and shoulder above whatever. Because one of the problems we had with this government was did not appreciate that it hadn't capacity. So what it did was it brought in people who also did not understand what needed to be done. The argument about subsidy to be removed had always been there from the beginning of this administration. They kept playing with it. The argument about allowing the naira to float and find its true value was difficult because they did not agree with it. And so what did the CBN do? They kept pumping our reserves to defend the naira. And today we are bleeding on all fronts. All right. And the whole thing about, yes, practically broke. Driving export and buying our own. The government is not living it. The president still drives a beast, a Mercedes beast, the type that first world a presidential fleet of over 11 planes. Some of the finest. The president is in one part of the world today with a president is somewhere else. The speaker and the senate only in this country. You know, he has not shown that you're to the kind of savings that you need to pump into education and get these lecturers back in the classroom. So I was laughing also when you were asking Osadebe what he thinks about what Peter Obi wants to do vis-a-vis the leaning of labor parties across the world. He has not spoken like somebody who would come and do labor a favor, because some of the things he talked about cutting, and in truth, we hear all the wastages and excesses and the merger of government agencies that are redundant or have.
I think we're having some technical issue. Sunday Ogwu, if you're just
around, so
okay, you're okay. If you can round up the point you're making, so that we can
up my point, and I just want to this, but they have a pedigree we can't wish away, whether you like their face or happy, however, that we
yeah, we're having some technical hitches.
are now beginning to take questions from people and have them on record, speak with their own mouth. And I hope every other presidential candidate will take a cue. And at the end of the day, I'm sure Nigeria will be better for it.
Amen. All right. We hope so. I'd like to quickly, I'm being told by my producer that we've actually used up the time. It was an interesting conversation that we've had from Sunday Ogwu, Osadebe Ibegu, and also John Shuaibu on the Nigerian politics and articulated policies that might be ushered in should he win 2023.
One of the Nigerian problem, the light in my background has gone off.
Let's hope that, like you said, any of them that comes in, they will solve the problem. Light, electricity, power is very important. So we really will hope that the best candidate to come in and solve this problem, because like Sunday was saying in his closing remarks, economy is very key. It's even key to security also. No matter how you try to manage security challenges in the country, if eventually you do not provide opportunities for people to be gainfully employed, they will still go back. So economy is key in anything they do. And so I want to enjoin Nigerians to look critically and also interrogate the economic policies of these candidates and go beyond rhetorics and just political speak. We'll be looking at concretely what are they going to do. Bring it into granular form to understand what they will do. But until we come your way again, and I hope when I invite the panelists to come so that we can have a further conversation on this issue, they will oblige me. Until then, I'd like to thank all of you for coming and other viewers for joining us. My name is James AKPAN on AKPAN'S Diary, and this has been the production of Age Television. Good night.
Thank you very much, AKPAN.
In this age and times comes great ideas, sweet memories,
new techniques,
untold stories about Africa and the world at large. Guess what? The new age brings on board a brand name in broadcasting technology.
Introducing Age Television. At Age Television, we serve you with professionalism
in news and event coverage,
live streaming, documentaries,
artist management,
video and photography,
social media management, and lots more.
For inquiries, call us on +27 061 773 9628
or 027 064 543 0136.
You can also send us WhatsApp messages on 078 229 4593.
YouTube HTV/Durban. Tweet us at HTV Durban.
Facebook at HTV Durban.
Instagram at HTV.Durban.
Email us at htvdurban@gmail.com.
Visit our website on www.htv.co.za. Age Television, celebrating the uncelebrated.